How to adapt a global business into the Nigerian market. This is what you will learn in this brand new episode, Real Business Talk, with Sola Oké, the managing director of Pernod Ricard in Nigeria.
In this episode, we will get into Pernod Ricard's business, and this is what you will learn. How Pernod Ricard adapt its business into African markets, what are the go-to-market strategies implemented in different countries, and how to deal with the cultural dynamics of the country they're operating in. Let's go for this real business talk with Sola Oké. Hello, Sola.
Hi,
Hi.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
We're good. We are very, very happy to have you here on our podcast, African Business Makers.
I am happy to be here.
Cool.
Yeah, and in this first episode, actually, we'll talk a lot about the business of Pernod Ricard, because this episode is our real business talk.
Yeah.
So we will dig into your business, the figures, the challenges, the victories. Are you ready?
Yes, let's go.
Cool. So maybe the first question can be, what is the mission Pernod Ricard is trying to solve, or the problem Pernod Ricard is trying to solve in Africa?
So, maybe first off, I don't manage. I manage Nigeria and Western Africa.
Yeah,
so
sure.
I'll speak
Yeah.
a lot about that.
But actually, Nigeria, as you say, is Africa, right?
Well,
It's a
we're
joke.
not all Africa. We are
I
the,
know.
the largest economy in Africa, so that speaks for itself.
Yes.
So, but I mean, for Pernod Ricard, we are creators of conviviality. You can say it better than me because you can speak in the French. So, créateur de convivialité. So that is
Créateur de
our
convivialité.
mission. That is basically who we are. We want to bring good times from a good place to all our consumers. We want to connect, harness the magic of human connection. So we want to really bring people together. That's what Pernod Ricard is about. So forget the drinks and all of that. It's harnessing that magic of human connection. That's what we stand for. So across the world, across all our markets, that's who we are.
And how do you make that happen in Nigeria?
How do we make it happen? Ooh, wow.
Yeah.
It's really through the brands. It's really through our brands. We have. I mean, if you don't know, Pernod Ricard has the biggest. We are in all categories of spirits. We're the only spirits business that name the category. We have a brand. So we've got the biggest portfolio in the world. So any category that is your choice, we have a brand in it. And all our brands really, it's about, really connecting people. We're a very consumer centric organization, which means that we build things based on consumers. So it's what the consumers want. And how we've been doing this, if I take examples of brands like Jameson, where in Nigeria specifically, we've grown the brand in the last couple of years. We were a very tiny brand. Now, Jameson in Nigeria is the number one whiskey according to IWSR. So it is, and the way we've done that is really, looking at what our consumers want, connecting them to the right influences, and building our brands through cultural connections. So it's not just about us coming into the country, but it's how do we engage? How do we make ourselves known? How do we connect to what our consumers in the country want? So now a lot of people are inspired by the brand. A lot of people can connect to the brand. And for them, it's a lot of how the brand makes me look, how it makes me feel, how it taps into who I am as well.
And can you walk us through your journey as the leader of Pernod Ricard in Nigeria? What was the state of the market when you started, and what was your kind of ambition
Okay.
that you were looking to reach when you started?
So I started in actually, if we talk about, I initially I'm Nigerian, so I joined Pernod Ricard actually 10 years ago. Um, but when I started this role in 2020, it was just post COVID. It was just post COVID. Um, so I came into the country in September of 2020, and it was still, a lot of the COVID conversations were happening. And one of the things I told my team at the time was I wanted to be number one. I wanted to,
Okay.
yes, I wanted to be number one. We were not number one. We were probably um, in spirits, maybe number three. In cognac, number three as well. But that was the conversation. Our first team meeting was I wanted to be number one. But what did that mean? It meant we needed to focus on a couple of things. First is our brands. How do we drive? How do we build the equity of the brands? How do we transform our business as well? One of the things you hear a lot from about Pernod Ricard is about transformation, business transformation. So we don't want to be stagnant. We don't want to stay where we are. We want to keep moving. We want to keep evolving our business. So business transformation and digital transformation is a significant part of our business. The other thing that we focus on is people. And there is no business without people. That is our greatest asset. And one of the things that when I came back was focusing on people and how do we unleash the power of our teams, unleash the power of our people. And then the last one is really about reputation. How do we ensure that we build a strong reputation as Pernod Ricard, from public affairs to our sustainability and responsibility agenda? So all those are the critical elements for me that were going to take us to where we wanted to be. And in the last 3.5 years, we've been truly consistent in driving those elements, starting with the brands. So building the brands, being clear and focused on our brands, from a whiskey conversation, because we wanted to lead in whiskey. If you know Nigeria very well, it's a very brown spirit market. It's all about brown spirits, whether it's whiskey, cognac, whatever. If you win in those, you win in the market, and that's what we prioritized. That's what we focused on. Of course, the environment can be challenging, to be honest. I mean, Africa is a challenging continent on its own. So it's how do we continue to navigate the headwinds and the challenges that we have in the market, to make sure that we are creating a sustainable business.
So you've mentioned the challenges that you have in Africa. What can you tell us, like the biggest challenges that you have in Nigeria? But you've worked also in many countries in Africa. Mainly, what are the challenges you're facing?
Biggest challenges that we always, in a lot of countries, and I'll speak specifically to Nigeria, is the macroeconomic challenges, inflation, which you always need to battle with. In Nigeria today, it's about FX. So foreign exchange, access to
Foreign
foreign
exchange, yeah.
exchange, and the challenge with foreign exchange for a market like ours is a lot of manufacturers import, whether it's finished products or raw materials. And if you are buying US dollars at a particular rate, and in a market where it is inconsistent and continues to change, in Nigeria, in the last 3 weeks, our FX has devalued significantly. Our currency has devalued significantly, which means that the price I bring it in is not necessarily the price I need to sell it, because now for me to replace that particular product that I've sold, the FX has devalued or the currency has devalued, so I need more to be
More
able to
money, yeah,
do that.
sure.
So
Yeah.
that's a big challenge, and the access to foreign exchange. And you see that in Nigeria in the last couple of months, some of the big players have actually left the country because it's no longer profitable for them. You know, so the biggest challenge we have now is that access to foreign exchange, the continued impact of inflation on the economy, and consumer buying power. So now, if I have 1,000 naira, what does it buy for me? Am I going to buy, you know, luxury products, or am I going to buy my basic essentials? So again, you
Yeah.
begin to see that. And then for us as a business, of course, the cost of goods are not changing in terms of the currency, but the Nigerian naira is devaluing. So I need to be sure that I create a sustainable business. Even if it's not as profitable as I expect it to be, I need to be at a particular threshold. And
Yeah,
to
sure.
be able to do that in a devaluing economy is extremely challenging.
And
The other thing
you
that
talked.
challenges us
Oh,
is
Yeah, yeah, go ahead. No, no,
is
go ahead.
regulatory policy. Is
Ah,
regulatory
yes.
policies. The sometimes the inconsistency, the abruptness of them challenges businesses, because sometimes you can wake up in the morning and there's a new policy you're not aware of that impacts your business significantly. All of a sudden, somebody says you need to pay 20% tax, which you haven't planned. It's not part of your initial P&L. So what happens? What do you do? You know. So those are the kind of more significant things that impact us.
and you talked a bit earlier about your, three parts plan. How did you organize operations and people to execute that plan? To become number one.
Um, so it's really about being clear what your strategy is. What is our strategy as a business? What do we want to achieve? And like we said, it's for Pernod Ricard is about being creators of conviviality. It's bringing good times from a good place, and then how do we harness the magic of human connection? So for us overall, it was really being the leading spirits organization in Nigeria, in West Africa, uh, but also impacting our communities positively. So what does that mean for our business? So it's not just about selling the products, but it's having a positive impact on the community. So how we set up and the things that we do will constantly impact our business. So that's why I talked about reputation, our sustainability and responsibility agenda. So we structure our business to be closer to our consumers, right? So we have a distribution model where we import our products. Um, we also manufacture, but through a third party at the moment. So there's a particular brand that we manufacture in Nigeria. Again, there's access to that raw material, the impact of it, but it's about making sure that we're closer to our consumers. So we have distributors all over Nigeria. Those distributors sell through the chain to wholesalers, to retail, and they're not centrally based. So we have a distributor in the east, a distributor in the west, and in various places in the west. And what we do is we sell to them, but we also consistently support them in making sure that whatever they're selling to their own customers, and even at consumer spaces, we are activating the brands to drive the equity, to drive the understanding, the education of those brands. So that's how we are. We are setting ourselves up to be closer to the consumer.
At the beginning, you were talking about the mission of Pernod Ricard, which is a créateur de convivialité. What I want to know is like how the African market has been like an hindrance or like an enabler to serve that mission.
Okay. The African market, and again, I'll speak to Nigeria, is actually an enabler to that. And the way I see it is Africans, Nigerians, we're very communal people. We like to be together. We like to do things together. So, creators of conviviality, if you're creating an atmosphere, an enabling atmosphere, we like to be in the middle of that. So, what Pernod Ricard is doing, we're just being the catalyst to what people already want to do, right? So that the magic of human connection, and how Africans see it, we want to be with our friends, our families. We are always together. We kind of group ourselves. We want to go out as a group. You don't necessarily see us just sitting at the bar by ourselves on a Friday night. As an African or as a Nigerian, we are together. So Pernod Ricard just enabling that a lot more, because as Africans, we already create that atmosphere, that environment of conviviality.
And how, like, the question I have in mind right now is, you are in different markets, in the market where they're like more like culturally, they say that they don't drink. Like, I don't know, like I'm thinking about Muslim countries, for instance. How is it there for you? Like, how does your marketing change, the way you are marketing your product change or not?
Okay, so we wouldn't sell into a market that prohibits alcohol, right? We
Okay.
wouldn't sell into such markets. But what I think your question is that there are dark markets where, for example, there's no advertising of alcohol above the line, right? So for such markets, the way we link up with consumers, or the way we do, the way we connect and the way we activate is very different. So, for example, there will be in those countries there will be no billboards. So the way you build the equity of the brand will be below the line. So you can do that in the bars, in your interaction with the consumer. Maybe you're doing some specific activities, but you will not be able to do above the line, which is at billboards,
Yeah,
TV,
yeah.
radio, and all of that. So
Radio
the
and
way we would market will be completely very different. But again, it is in such countries where alcohol is still allowed. We will never go to a country where it is prohibited and be forcing ourselves in those kind of places. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
So the
Okay.
way we would do it would be very different, more purposeful below the line, going into outlets, managing the level of the type of education and interaction. Possibly you could use influencers, things like that. But the strategy will be very different from an open market where you're allowed to activate above the line.
Okay.
Okay. And speaking about cultural differences, you're part of a big group that is actually French.
Yeah.
In terms of corporate culture and DNA, how do you manage to kind of adapt the corporate culture that you have from the group to your country? So that the people in your team feel part of the group, but taking into account the local specificities.
Okay. Our group culture is conviviality. We are very big on that. So it's a work hard, play hard kind of organization. So, and again, we are a global organization, where, yes, we are, it's a French company, but we are a global organization. We have very diverse people that work in Pernod Ricard. We have significant, about 18,000 employees, I believe, throughout the world. That's a huge organization, and we are in over 80 countries. But the DNA of who we are is conviviality. There is no other organization, and this is not me saying it because I work for Pernod Ricard, that I have seen the level of connection when it comes to conviviality, and that's what we imbibe in any of the markets. Any market you go to, that culture of conviviality. At the end of the day, at the end of the week, we celebrate ourselves by just sitting down, sharing a drink with your colleague, or your team. And it's that spirit of conviviality, that spirit of celebration that cuts across all our markets. And any market you go, no matter the culture, no matter the people, it's the same.
It's
It's
the same.
pretty much the same. Yeah.
Super interesting. Just before you said that your best value is people, and I
Yes.
believe that as well.
Yes.
How do you recruit your talents? Where do you find them? And you as a GM, what are you looking for in a talent?
So I'll give you an example. Nigeria. I have a very young team. And when I say a very
Okay.
young team, I'm probably the oldest in the Nigerian team. So
Okay.
that tells you a lot. Not that I'm old, but yeah. we we look for people that fit into our culture. So beyond the technical capabilities and understanding, we look for people that also fit the culture. So
Mm.
if you're not going to fit into our culture of conviviality, you might not be the right person for the role. We also give
But how do
people,
you measure that? How do you how do you measure that those person who are applying
yeah.
to Pernod Ricard fit the culture?
It's based on the series of questions you kind of ask, the how they spend their time, what they do in their spare time, what kind of connects to them, how they adapt in an environment or specific environment. So there's different ways that you kind of sense, but ultimately with any process, it's when they get into the business that you truly know whether they fit into the culture or not.
Yeah.
But no, we
Yeah.
we try and of course we want technically sound people who understand the market or the function or the strategy. We don't. It's not necessarily that you must have, depending on the role. You don't need to have 200 years of experience. It's just that ability to be able to connect with the consumer, ability to understand where the business wants to go, and also knowing what you bring uh, to the business that'll be different, that'll be more engaging, that'll be more impactful. And then do you fit into the culture? Because your culture is your DNA. Your culture
Yeah.
is what stands out a lot more for a lot of people. I mean, I've heard people tell me that the only reason I'm here is because of the culture. So that's what we have, and that's what we hold on to.
Cool.
And as a leader, what are your kind of rituals to keep that culture alive and strong?
Being part of it and
That's a great
ensuring
step.
that it happens. So being, I mean, one of the things that we do here at Pernod Ricard in Nigeria is what we call a town hall,
Yeah.
where we kind of at the end of a quarter or at the end of a month, we kind of gather everybody together and just talk about how we're doing, what the marketing team has done that is really interesting, what the sales team has done, and we celebrate the teams. And at the end of that, everybody goes to the bar. We educate people on the brands that we have, because again, it's about continuing to immerse our teams on our brands. So we spend that time together, celebrating each other, but having that convivial moment together. And regardless of whether it's tough times, regardless of whether it's the fun times, we are deliberate in ensuring that we do that. So even when things seem a bit challenging, ensuring that deliberateness of us celebrating, spending time together is what we insist on. And for me, that's what I insist on. So whether it's my direct team, whether it's the entire business, and sometimes what I also do is I do what I call the skip level, where I take out the line managers and go straight to the next level of employees and just spend some time with them so they can connect, they can ask me anything. We should, and that's what it's all about for me.
And just like, how many people are you like in Nigeria, Pernod Ricard?
We're about 77.
Okay, quite a big team. Great. Do you have maybe we? I don't know if you have any other question, Jennifer, on the real business talk, like digging in the business of Pernod Ricard in Africa. Do you have?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe the last question I have for you is, when we started the episode, you said that your ambition was to become number one, which you managed to do. So what is your next step now? For the
It's
business of Pernod
sometimes
Ricard?
my next step in terms of Nigeria, or what we want to do with the business in Nigeria.
The business in Nigeria.
Okay. Is to sustain our leadership position. It's easier to get to the top than to stay there. And what usually happens is you become the target for everybody, right? So everybody else looks at you. So and in a challenging environment, especially now that we have in Nigeria, the big conversation for us is about resilience. That's the conversation with for us with the team. It's about resilience, being resilient despite all the challenges that are happening. Meaning that how do we sustain our leadership position for our brands, and that's more challenging than trying to get to the top. Staying on top is key, but again for us it's really about we continue to build the equity of our brands. For me, the legacy is I want brands that will stay in the market for the next 20, 30, 40, 50, 100 years, not just for today. That's the legacy. So even if I'm retired, I'm sitting on the beach, I still want to be able to see Jameson, Martell, Absolute in Nigeria doing relatively well. So the foundations that we set today is going to be the building blocks for the next people tomorrow, and not just 5 years, but 10, 20, 30, 40 years from now.
So we will know in the next episode what made you this like strong belief, and how did you end up here actually being a GM of Pernod Ricard in Nigeria.